If you thought the era of full-size SUVs in America was over, then GM hopes to prove you wrong with their brand new 2015 full-size SUV lineup. There are actually 6 different models of GM's full-size SUV. On the short side, we have the Yukon, the Tahoe, and the Escalade, and on the long side, we have the Suburban, Yukon XL, and the Escalade ESV. These 6 vehicles are designed to compete with everything in this relatively small segment, from Toyota's Sequoia on up to something like a Lexus LX 570. Let's go a little bit out of order in this video and talk about size first. At 204 inches long, the Yukon is a really big vehicle. But if you don't think this is big enough, then GM will sell you a 224-inch long Yukon XL, Chevy Suburban, or Escalade ESV, and that is truly long. This vehicle seats 7, 8, or 9 passengers depending on your configuration. On the short version of GM's full-size SUV that we're taking a look at right here, we have a wheelbase of just about 116 inches, and that's the distance between the center of this wheel and the center of the wheel up front. For reference, that's about the same size as a Fiat 500's overall length. So you actually could park a Fiat 500 between the center of this wheel and the center of that front wheel right up there, and it would fit. If you get the long wheelbase version of this vehicle, then you actually get a 15-inch stretch to that wheelbase and a 20-inch stretch overall to the body right back here. Now, the additional body and the additional wheelbase allows GM to give you an extra 15 inches in terms of rear seat legroom for the third row, and the rest of that gets devoted to the cargo area right back here. GM's overall design themes lately have been very square, very bold as well, and I think that works extremely well on a full-sized SUV. I actually find the Escalade to be the most attractive of the trio, and I find that the Chevy Suburban and the Chevy Tahoe are the least attractive of the trio, with this model coming right here in between. We have this very bold, very brash egg crate grille right up here, which I do find very attractive. We have these HID headlamps on our particular model. We are taking a look at the Denali, and we also have the LED light pipes around there for daytime running lamps. Fog lamps down here, front parking sensors on our particular model, and because we have the radar cruise control system with the pre-collision warning, we also have a radar sensor right here in this section of the bumper. For reference, I'm 6 feet tall, so that really gives you an idea of how tall and how upright this front hood is. If you get the Cadillac, then you do get some full LED headlamps that I think are extremely attractive. They're some of the most attractive LED headlamps I've ever seen. And I think, strangely enough, even before we go back to the back of the vehicle, I'm going to give this 10 out of 10 points in the Cadillac version, 9 out of 10 points in this version, and 8 out of 10 points in the Chevy versions as far as exterior style goes. I really appreciate style that stands out for itself, style that answers to no one, that isn't really copying anything, and that is certainly true of the Cadillac Escalade. You really won't mistake that for anything else out on the road. Helping you get in and out of this large SUV more easily, we have power running boards right up here. They are optional on certain trims, but they're standard on our particular model. Right up here, we have the optional 22-inch wheels, which I think are proportioned very nicely to this Denali model that we're taking a look at right here. You will get a slightly better ride in the slightly smaller wheels, however, because we don't have quite as much rubber going on here as we do in the other models. Our particular model also has the MagnaRide suspension system, which is an active suspension system, and these are very wide tires as well. They're 285 millimeters wide, which is a terribly wide tire, but you need that when you're trying to get a vehicle this heavy around a corner. The rear of the Yukon is an exercise in practicality. We have this very vertical rear tailgate, which means you get maximum cargo carrying capacity on the inside. It is a little slab-sided, but I still find it very attractive. Right here we have these C-shaped LED tail lamp modules. If you got the Cadillac Escalade, you get these really long LED tail lamps that go all the way from here all the way up to the top. We have a hidden windshield wiper right back here on the rear glass, and the glass does open separately from the power tailgate, which allows you to put smaller items right in here without opening the whole tailgate. I do find that very convenient. It is also a little bit easier to deal with if you're in a tight parallel parking situation. We do have a full power tailgate right here, and you can adjust how high this opens, which is an important consideration because this vehicle is quite large. Even on our 6.2-liter V8 Denali model, we do have a hidden exhaust tip. It's right over there on the driver's side. We have a discrete strip of chrome right here, rear parking sensors integrated very nicely into the bumper, and this little cover right here hides your tow hitch. Among these 6 models, there are only 2 different engines. Things start out with the 5.3-liter V8 engine. It produces 355 horsepower and 383 pound-feet of torque. If you get the Cadillac version or the Denali models, then you get a 6.2-liter V8 engine producing 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. Now, these are still push-rodded engines, however, they are thoroughly modern engines. So if anyone is telling you that this is old technology, that's simply not true under this hood. These engines have variable valve timing, direct injection, cylinder deactivation, and they're still push-rotted engines. Now, sending that power to the ground is a 6-speed automatic transmission in the early 2015 models for both engines. Now, late availability, and we're told that that will happen sometime around the December 2014 timeframe, you will actually see an 8-speed automatic transmission mated to the 6.2-liter V8 engine that should give it better fuel economy than what we're getting out of this model right here. What we're taking a look at under this hood is the 6.2-liter V8 engine. GM hasn't said anything about when or if they will stick the 8-speed automatic transmission to the 5.3-liter V8 engine, but I expect that to happen at some point soon, perhaps in the 2015 or 2016 calendar years. Fuel economy comes in not as bad as you might think for a vehicle that can weigh up to 3 tons. If you do get the fully loaded Cadillac model, then it will tip the scale just over 6,000 pounds. If you get the 5.3-liter V8, you get 16 miles per gallon city, 23 highway with 18 combined for the 2-wheel drive version, 16, 22, 18 combined if you do get the 4-wheel drive system. That 4-wheel drive system really doesn't take much of a toll on the combined mileage, but it does exact about a 1 mile per gallon toll out on the highway. If you get the 6.2-liter V8 engine, then things drop just a hair to down to 15 miles per gallon city, 21 highway, 17 combined for the 2-wheel drive, and then you lose 1 mile per gallon in the city in that 4-wheel drive 6.2-liter V8 down to 14 miles per gallon city, 21 highway. The available 4-wheel drive system in all of these vehicles is essentially the same as you'll find in the Chevy Silverado line of pickup trucks. Our particular model here has a 2-speed transfer case with a 4-high, a 4-low. Those are both with the front axle and the rear axle completely connected to one another, so it should only be used off-road style only. It also has an auto mode for on-road 4-wheel drive use if you should be in slippery conditions that will automatically sense traction loss and then send power up to the front. Typically, it's not really sending much power up to the front in that auto mode, and we also have a 2-high mode for best fuel economy all around. Towing ranges from 7,900 pounds to 8,500 pounds, depending on whether you get 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, the 5.3, the 6.2-liter V8 engine, and which model of the vehicle you get. The top-end towing capacity will happen in the 2-wheel drive Tahoe, and the low-end towing capacity will happen in the long wheelbase 4-wheel drive Cadillac Escalade. At 8,500 pounds, this is rated about 500 pounds lower than the top-end Nissan Armada, but it is much higher in capacity than just about every other option out there except for pickup trucks. If you really need to tow a lot of big, heavy things, but you don't want a pickup truck, this is the next best thing. If you're wondering about that Dodge Durango, it does come in a little bit lower than this. It's around 7,500 pounds maximum, but it is very close. Let's start out our interior tour on the 3rd row. We have height adjustable seatbelts right back here in the 3rd row. The seat cushioning is leather, unlike some crossovers you'll find where you get fabric seats in the 3rd row. If we scoot on over here to the side, we do have cup holders and a little knick-knack holder right over here, right by the seat belt. The center seat belt position in the 3rd row does come out of the ceiling. I find that a little bit less handy for child seat installation. It is removable right here, so you can remove it and then fold this entire 3rd row bench seat completely flat with the cargo area. Since this is a 3-row bench seat, you will find 2 additional cup holders right here on the other side of the rear bench. You'll also find a 12-volt power outlet. And then over here we have the electric release button to flip and fold this 2nd row seat forward, like that. Over in the 2nd row, keep in mind that we are in the model with captain's chairs, so we do have non-adjustable headrests. These do not move up and down or in and out. We have fixed seat belts right over here, and then you'll find the cup holder for the 2nd row seats right over here in the door, along with some additional storage cubbies right down there in the door and right here under this armrest. Because we're in the model with the rear seat entertainment system, we have a volume control right here, auxiliary inputs, a USB input, secure digital card input. These are strictly for the rear seat entertainment system, so you can't plug something into here and then use the front entertainment system to access them. We have our rear climate controls right over here, 12-volt power outlet over there, and a 120-volt AC outlet right over on that side. Right up here on the ceiling, we have the rear seat entertainment system, which is available in our particular vehicle. The remote control descends right out of the ceiling, right like that. This is one of the best rear seat entertainment systems I have used in a while. I really like this interface, as you can see here. If you want to know more about this particular system, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen, and there'll be a complete video just on this rear seat entertainment system in a few days. Both the driver and the front passenger get height adjustable seat belts. Our particular model also has the heated and ventilated front seats. We get perforated leather right up there. And if we move on over to the door panels, we do have a large portion of soft touch plastics coating the doors, upper and the armrest as well. Now, somewhat unusual for this category, you will also find real wood trim in the Denali and the Cadillac versions of GM's full-size SUVs. Our particular model has this maple wood trim, which is very attractive. You can see it right over here on the door. It's also on the dashboard and very tastefully on the center console as well. Very much like the rear seats, we have some additional storage right here below the armrest and a little cubby right down there. And then we also have another storage cubby a little bit lower in the door. You can see it right there behind the speaker grill. We have hard touch plastics lower in the dashboard, leather right up here, and then soft touch plastics further up in the dashboard. We open the glove compartment, you will find a relatively small glove compartment right here for a vehicle this size. That's because the heating and the air conditioning systems in the vehicle occupy this lower portion of the dashboard and a little bit of the passenger side footwell as well. Now, as I said, above that hard plastic trim, we actually have leather right here on the dashboard and then soft touch injection molded plastic right up here. More rail wood trim, and then we have this very interesting trim strip right over here, which is metal right here and then plastic right in that honeycomb area, and that honeycomb sort of integrates this strip all the way over there with that air vent on the other side. I find that design very attractive. One thing several passengers in the vehicle this week told me to mention is that you can see the seam right over here for the airbag in the dashboard on the passenger side. Personally, it didn't bother me, but it did bother a number of passengers. Moving on over to the center of the dashboard, we have a center channel speaker right up there, and you'll notice we have this seam right across the top of this infotainment display. That's because the display actually moves up and opens to reveal a very large storage cubby right here and an additional USB port there in the back. You can very easily stick phones or even very small tablet computers right there on the inside. That USB port is more than just a charging port, it is an interface for this multimedia information system. If we close this display, you can see that we do have this 7-inch touchscreen LCD infotainment system known as IntelliLink. If you want to know more about this infotainment system, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen. You'll be taken on over to a video inside one of General Motors' pickup trucks. It is exactly the same system, and I also go over the reconfigurable LCD instrument cluster in that same video. Below that LCD instrument cluster, we have physical buttons for a variety of system functions: radio, media, the screen up down button, eject button for this single slot optical player, a dedicated back button, home button, forward and backward button, radio, and a dial knob right over there. Now, this software is very similar to Cadillac's Q, except that we do have these physical buttons right here rather than essentially no buttons in the Q system. I do find the addition of these physical buttons to be very helpful in navigating the system. We have our keyless go right over here in our particular model, dual zone climate control up front, and then another third zone for the rear right back down here. The rear zone does have an auto mode as well. Below the climate control buttons, we have the buttons for a heated and cooled seat. You can heat just the back, you can heat the bottom and the back, or you can cool the entire seat. If we move over here to the driver's side, you can see more of this real wood trim right here, and then yet another storage cubby right down there below it. If we move on over to the center console, this reveals 2 USB inputs, a 12-volt power outlet, and an area large enough to store sunglasses or a smartphone. If we move back from that, we do have 2 very large cup holders right over here, easily able to accommodate large takeout drinks. And then if we open the center console, which is large and padded, you will find yet more USB ports. Again, 2 more USB ports right here, a secure digital card slot, and a stereo mini auxiliary input. Some additional storage cubbies right there, and then we have a very large and very deep center console. As you can see, I have a digital SLR, some instruction manuals, wallet, all manner of things right there in that center console. It is nicely padded. We also have a little section right here that you can easily put your smartphone in there right like that to keep it from sliding around. Our model is equipped with General Motors' latest color heads-up display. As you can see right here, we have infotainment information. You can also get navigation information, a tachometer, or you can just get your speedometer, and the cruise control information would appear right over there on the left side of that. Over on the instrument cluster, we have 2 very traditional analog gauges, a tachometer right over here on the left and a speedometer right over there on the right. We have some additional gauges imitated on this LCD instrument cluster right there in the middle. There are a variety of different displays and different layouts that you can choose for this display. If you want to know more about that, then go ahead and click on over to the infotainment review. This particular display is my favorite. If you engage tow haul mode, then we get 2 additional gauges that pop up right there on the top of that screen. You get oil pressure as well as transmission temperature over there. Now, as I said, this display is highly configurable. You do get a wide variety of different screens to choose from, and the overall look is very good. I rank this probably my second favorite LCD instrument cluster available, just behind Cadillac Q. I do think that Cadillac instrument cluster is probably my favorite one going, even including the new Jaguar and Land Rover LCD instrument clusters. Moving on out to the steering wheel, we have a very traditional 4-spoke steering wheel. On this side, we have buttons that control that multi-information display right up there, voice command button and dedicated phone hang-up button, heated steering wheel control button, collision warning and following distance for the radar cruise control, and then cruise control buttons right over here. On the back side of the steering column is where you'll find volume up and down on this side, and then you'll find track up and down on this side of the steering wheel. Because we're on the Denali model, we have basically all the options, including power adjustable pedals. We have lane departure warning, parking sensors. That's our traction control off button. And this button right here controls the power running boards on the vehicle. You can enable or disable them using that button if you're parked. Over here we have the heads-up display control buttons. Down here we have the headlamp buttons. This is for the four-wheel drive system. We're in two-wheel drive high. We also have an auto mode, four-wheel drive high, four-wheel drive low. And then right over here, we have a very nice option, which is an integrated trailer brake controller. If you do a great deal of towing, then I highly recommend you get a trailer brake integrated with the vehicle if it's available when you're purchasing it. It'll save you an awful lot of time and an awful lot of wiring headache later. Moving on up to the ceiling, we have our HomeLink universal transmitter buttons right here. Our controls for our traditional sunroof. This is not a panoramic sunroof, it is a very traditional size. You'll find the button for the power rear tailgate hatch right over here, and you can also rotate this knob to adjust how far open you want it if you are in a low garage situation. Dome light control right here. This disables the motion sensor for the alarm system, and then you'll find your map lights right over there. You can see what I mean about the size of the sunroof. If we do back up just a little bit, you can see that it is a very traditionally sized sunroof. Front seat comfort comes in at 8 out of 10 points. It's important to keep in mind that in this full-size SUV world, we do get a decent number of luxury competitors like the Infiniti QX80 as well as the Mercedes-Benz GL. They're not that much more expensive in this vehicle either, and in certain configurations they may even be less expensive. Right here we have a tilt telescopic steering column. It is memory linked and it's also electric. We also have a 12-way power adjustable driver's seat. This seat does have a 4-way adjustable lumbar support. The passenger seat also has the same range of motion as the driver's seat, which is a nice touch. And we have a 2-position seat memory setting right over there on the door. Front seat comfort does drop slightly if you opt for the 9-passenger variant of GM's full-size SUV, because we do get a bench seat across the front. You get a little bit less lateral support in that bench seat. Second row comfort comes in at 8 out of 10 points. It doesn't really matter whether you get the bucket seats or the bench seats. They're just about as comfortable as one another. We are in the 7-passenger version, which means we do get captain's chairs right here on the second row. There's a decent amount of headroom even though we're in the sunroof equipped model. This is actually probably the most amount of headroom you'll find in any 3-row vehicle out there. If I move all the way over to the right side of the vehicle, this front seat is all the way back in its tracks, and you can see I still have about 1.5 inches of legroom left right over here on this side. The second row seats do recline. We have a little lever right over here, and this serves to both recline the seat and to fold the seat flat like this if you want to put longer cargo items in the back. The seat also flips forward for easier entry into the back seat, and if you do that to get into the back seat, the third row is relatively easy to get into. I'll sit all the way back in the third row, fold this second row back right like that, and with this seat in its upright position, I do have about 2 inches of legroom left right here. Now the seat bottom cushion is almost on the floor, so it may be a little bit less comfortable for adults. Now in this short wheelbase version of the Yukon, you will find less legroom back here than in something like a Dodge Durango, but you do get 15 more inches of rear legroom if you get the long wheelbase version. Now for reference, 15 extra inches would put the legroom somewhere right about here. That means that you really could stretch out in that third row of the long wheelbase Yukon XL, the Suburban, or the Escalade ESV. That's part of why you want that extra length in the vehicle. Overall, this third row scores 8 out of 10 points, 10 out of 10 points if you do get that long wheelbase version. All 3 rows back here give you top tether anchors for child seats, but only the second row gives you latch anchors. In somewhat of an unusual twist, all 3 seating positions in that second row, if you do get the bench seat, will give you seat latch anchors for child seats. If you want to know how well child seats fit in this vehicle, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be taken on over to that review. When it comes to cargo capacity, full-size SUVs typically lag behind 3-row crossovers. That means that once we open this power tailgate hatch right here, you'll notice I have 2 roller bags right here, and this is about all that will fit right back here in the short wheelbase version. 24-inch roller bag right over here, 26-inch roller bag right over here, and that is pretty much all that will fit back here. If I take these 2 bags out, you'll notice this load floor is a little bit higher here than the entry area, and that's because if you fold this third row flat, then that is where it folds to. So we have a little bit of a storage compartment right here to help level off that load floor. Otherwise you'd have this short area here at one height, and then you'd have the third row seats at a different height. Our particular model has the power folding third row seats, so if I scooch these headrests down and we press this button right over here, they will fold completely flat into the floor, again with this load area right back here. When you get the third and the second row completely folded flat, you do have about the same amount of space as you'd find in something like a GMC Acadia, a Chevy Traverse, or a Buick Enclave. If, however, you get the long wheelbase version, things are very different. You actually have about the same amount of space behind this hatch, behind the third row, as you do in this vehicle with the third row folded. That means that in that long wheelbase version with the third row in place and people actually in it, you can fit 6 or 7 people's worth of luggage right there behind it, because we have about the same amount of rear cargo area in that long wheelbase version as you'd find in your average 2-row crossover, something like a Jeep Grand Cherokee or a Toyota Venza. You'll find that behind the third row, and that is very unusual. You won't find anywhere near that amount of storage space in anything other than a minivan. Overall, this vehicle comes in at 8 out of 10 points in my exclusive Trunk Comfort Index, 10 out of 10 points if you get the extended wheelbase version. I do find this rear separately opening glass very, very handy, and it's fairly accommodating back here if you get that long wheelbase version. Again, if you do get the short wheelbase version, you're going to fit about 2 people's worth of luggage, even though you can fit 9 people on the inside. During the editing process of this video, it was obvious that this thing was just getting too long for one video, so I decided to split it in 2 after consulting with everybody over at facebook.com/AlexandAutos. So if you click that button at the bottom of your screen, you'll be taken on over to part 2 of this video, which includes the drive section as well as pricing and comparisons. If you want to see this kind of split up in the future, then go ahead and let me know down there in the comment section down below, and I'll go ahead and do that in the future.